Hey, this is Judah from SceneForge Studio, and in this video I want to talk about the changes, improvements, bug fixes, and additions to version 0.3.1, as well as touch on some of the upcoming features in the next major release, which is really exciting. So let's jump right in. The biggest and most important change to this release is that the storyboard editor has been completely overhauled to be much more integrated into the SceneForge workflow, as well as being much more powerful and actually usable rather than just a simple stopgap solution to storyboarding. So let's walk through these changes. So our frame selection is now on the right-hand side. Our timeline is a little bit different now. It has some information about the shot number at the bottom. We have our frame controls at the right, and some more information that we can apply to our shots on the left. Now, these controls are basically the same as before. They're just kind of rearranged. This is part one of a new wave of functionality to the storyboard editor, so I'm going to be waiting until everything is completed for a new updated tutorial. That being said, if you want to learn a little bit more about the way it is now, this video is perfect for you. So you can see you can select your timeline shots in the same way you could before, but rather than a plus button over here, it is now over here. It says add frame, and that will add a new empty frame. You can also delete frames by clicking this button, and that will delete the currently selected frame. Just like before, you can assign shots to the selected frame through the selection on the right. And new to this release is these left and right buttons, so you can shift the selected frame left or right on the timeline. It just makes it easier to rearrange some things rather than having to deselect and then add the new frame again. It was kind of a nightmare before. Now it's really easy. On the right of the active frame panel, you have two new options, one for a dialogue line and then an action line, as well as the regular shot description. Also, up at the top, you have a new indicator for the shot number, as well as a shot name. So this would be like a location or just some other bit of important information about what's going on at the frame. Usually location is what that would be for. So dialogue, action, and description they're all optional, but of course it is useful information for your storyboard. These would be single lines like, what are you thinking, or something like that. That would be useful to have, that indicates the emotion of the shot. The action, of course, is just a one quick line about what's happening, and your description is your description, obviously. So now that we know what that is, let's talk about the shot numbering. So you'll see at the bottom over here also, with each one, it says number 1A, 1B, and 1C. What's also cool is that you'll see these will still remain regardless of the order of your shots, which is just useful when you rearrange things. Now you might be wondering, what does this mean? Well, this indicates the number of your scene. So in this case, it's 1, because this is the first scene of the project, as you can see over here, the only scene of the project. Then A, which is the first shot of the timeline of this scene, the first frame, I suppose. So we have A, B, and C. Now, this is a relatively standard naming convention for storyboard frames, but let's say you want something a little more custom. Let's say your team works differently. That's why we have this new configure storyboard menu. So we open this up and you have this whole awesome menu for changing basically every bit of this formula. So you can change the separator to be a slash. As you can see, it updates down here and up here. You can change the prefix to just shot or frame. You can change the scene numbering to have more zeros if that's the display you like. And same thing goes for shot. It could be a letter or a number. And you'll notice continue. Now, what does continue mean? In certain cases where you have like a dolly shot or a long oneer that you want multiple tweens or keyframes in this shot, you wouldn't want a whole new shot number. So that just indicates a continuation. That functionality is coming in the next release. I'm very excited for that. So until then, this just doesn't do much. In the meantime, it's worth playing around with this and finding a naming convention you like. My favorite is to do shot, and then the number dash the letter, but of course that is up to you. Now once you have all of this configured, you have a nice storyboard with a bunch of frames. I'm going to add a couple more just empty ones, like that. Now let's click export. Now the export menu has also changed. Now we have the option for PDF or HTML. So yes, we have PDF, which is fantastic. We have the option for black and white images. This is only for HTML at the moment, but is coming to PDF soon. And you also have the options for what camera information you want to display. For most things, focal length is really all you need for actual on-set production, but if you want to add this other information, you totally can as well. So I'm going to click export, and that will take a second to generate our file. And we can open this up. This is in HTML because I find it's a little faster to export. So you can see we have our list of shots. Now, of course, this format is a little bit different than the previous grid format. That is just because I find this easier to print and it's easier to display, and it's overall more versatile. Additionally, when we have floor plan functionality, that can just easily be displayed here, as well as arrows for continuation. So other types of layouts are going to be included in later releases. You can have options for the grid if you'd like it, but for now, this is what we have. So there's no shot information for these, but you can see that it is laid out like a big list. So when it is in the PDF format, which I'll just simulate by clicking print, you can see that we have proper pagination and all of that. It still needs a little bit of work because working with PDFs and types of things are not the easiest thing in the world, but it is much more functional in a real production environment than the previous template we had. So I think this is a worthwhile addition and a good change that we added. So that is basically an overview of 0.3.1. So again, this is part 1 of the storyboard overhaul. Part 2 will include the continuation as well as a upcoming floor plan editor. Now what that is for is, 1, so you can actually create rooms and things that either mimic your real environment or for planning out the sets that you're going to be building. It also makes it really easy to have a orthographic and stylized top-down view of your scene, which can be directly integrated into the storyboard editor to see exactly where your cameras are, where your characters are, in a much more easily readable way than just a, image of the scene top down. It's just a much more easy and all-in-one solution to that problem. Because of that, we got rid of the little 2D, 3D toggle just because it wasn't being used, and it's paving the way for this upcoming new set of features. So we're going to have stage, set, storyboard, shoot, and then in a future release, we're going to have stage or script, stage, set, storyboard, shoot. So we're going to be just overwhelming the menu with options that start with the letter S for some reason. So there's going to be more integrations with your existing production workflow, so with storyboards, floor plans, scripts, screenplays, things like that, as well as your regular viewfinder. So some really exciting stuff. One more really quick option that was added to the render menu, and that is render post motion blur. Now this essentially adds motion blur that's calculated frame by frame during the render process, as opposed to the motion blur effect in the lens options. This is done in real time, so you'll actually see it as you move the camera, as opposed to the post effect, which is rendered and calculated with each frame. So it's just a different way of doing things. This is typically more realistic, but it takes obviously much longer to render out the video. And so with that, that is version 0.3.1. I hope that was useful. I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. As always, you can get started completely for free at sceneforge.app, and I will see you in the next one.